Age of 21, Joey became an entrepreneur. By 24, he was a self-made millionaire in the automotive and commercial real estate sector. Now Joey is a president of Auto Giants Nissan and the CEO of Auto Giants Mitsubishi. Can't wait to hear your story, brother, and I'm glad you made it. You smell good, too.
Thank you, man.
You look sharp, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Dress up enough.
No, man, you look, I go both ways. Sometimes I dress like that. I haven't recently because I've been doing all the content and like stuff like that, but over the years I've done it both ways. But no, man, super excited to be here. And, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, you nailed it. That was the story, pretty much. I guess opening up with that, I started out in business when I was 21, and the commercial real estate thing kind of happened by accident, right? I bought my first dealership. I went in and I bought it on the back of a napkin. I remember, and this is really where you get into creative deals, is the guy came in, he's like, hey, I want $300,000 or $3,000 a month for it. And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you $3,500 a month, and I'm going to pay you with an option to buy for $350 for 39 months, and you give me the first 3 months for free. And then boom, that property ended up scoring. That ended up being it. And that was that. And so I was a young kid that made money and didn't know what the hell I was doing in business. So
yeah, when was that?
That was 2000. That would have been, not even 2000. That was 1990. That would have been, that deal was cut in 1998.
Cool.
That was 1998.
What are your philosophies when it comes to business when you get started? Just like you start, I know you're a big guy of start with the end in mind, but what do you think some of the core things when you go into business? Because a lot of people go into business, they're broke, they don't have any money to get started, they don't have any money for marketing,
sure.
They don't have any hiring experience.
So one of my core philosophies would first, you got to know what the market pays, right? You know what I mean? Like a lot of people come in and they want to get into business and they have these dreams. And even if you really succeed in that business, you don't really win what you want. The money's not there, right? Some of these businesses just don't make a lot of money, right? And, I start out in automotive and, I hear you all the time talk about net. I know you put a lot of money to the bottom line, right? But the car business isn't like that. It's razor thin profit margins. So you have to be an extremely good operator. If you're not, you're dead, right? So that being said, as I look for new businesses, when I started in the business, this is a good point. When I started in business, the business was more profitable. The margins were fat, right? There wasn't, the internet, there wasn't all the other tools out there, right? So what happened is the business was more forgiving. So I made more profit, and then I could go in and I could learn the skills that I needed to learn, right? A lot of these businesses, you can't even go in if you don't already possess the skills. If you get into a business with thin profit margins in it, the business isn't fat enough in order to give you the money that you need to develop the skills that you need. So I would look for a business with good profit margins or a business where I had transferable skills in,
Talk about how you came up and just what was the family like and what made you so eager at the age of 21 to jump into it?
My dad was 59 and my mom was 19. Right? So my dad was born in 1915. So my dad was like, the classic Italian, he was in the restaurant business, the nightclub business, and, he did real estate. 1915 he was born in. 1915 he was born. So he was 59 and my mom was 19. But the benefit of that is when I was 12 years old, my dad was on his way out. He died when I was 18. So the conversations that we would have, he talked to me like I was 40 at 12, right? So, I mean, he was very loving and everything like that, but was kind of, that's where I got the entrepreneur drive. When my dad, he told me, he said, there's only basically one of three things you can do, right? He's like, I'm going to leave you a little bit of money when I die. And it wasn't a lot of money, but at the time it was a lot of money, like when you don't have anything, right? But he's like, you can either go to college, you can buy a paid for house, or you can go into business for yourself. Right? If you go to college, you can only go if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. Anything else I'm not interested in. So you go to college, you become a doctor, lawyer, an engineer, or you buy a house cash, or you go to, business. And that was the thing. I wanted to be an entrepreneur from the time I was, I remember being in high school and, late middle school, high school, and them going around the room and saying, everybody was talking about what they wanted to do. And I was like, I didn't even want to be in school because I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to make money. I want to be in business. And school isn't for people. And obviously I'm for education. But at that time, I was a kid. But I was like, school's for people that don't know what they want to do. I know what I want to do. I want to go make money. I want to go into business. And that was that came from my father and really instilled that. When we were kids, we used to go for like, we would cook dinner, you know, Italian dinner, stuff like that, regular, normal family dinner. And we would go get ice cream and we would go for a ride. And my dad would take me around town and he would go in and he'd tell me everybody's story. He'd be like, you see that guy? That's Tommy Mello. This is how he started, right? You know, and he would go through and he'd say, hey, this business here, this is a good business. Let me tell you why. This business here, this is a bad business. Let me tell you why, right? So it was those trips to go get ice cream that really, I mean, and even thinking about it just wants to make me get choked up because it was so magical in the aspect. I'm so grateful for it, man. It was like the best time of my life. Like when I go in there, there's nothing in my life that really was better than those times. So for me, it was like me living, my father wanted me to do this, right? And that mattered to me, so that's really what it was.
At 59, I met a couple of guys that their dads were really well off and way older when they were born. And most of the people I know, they feel like they've got something to prove. They got a chip on their shoulder. They're like, I want to follow dad's footsteps, but even move beyond that because that's what dad wanted. And I'm talking like one of my buddies, his dad founded Hilton. And he's like, so he's out to prove the world and he's killing it. But he's got this thing where it's like work, 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 and I love to work. I mean, there are people that work to live. There are people that live to work. I just enjoy what I do. I built the job I love, but I don't ever feel like I'm going to work. What was it like for you in the early stages of grinding?
Oh, so my dad died would have been my senior year in high school, right? He died. Everything, he didn't have estate planning or anything like that. Everything went into, like probate, right? You know what I mean? Just the classic everything. So, everybody fighting over money right away, the house, everything, the normal.
How much family did you have? Like,
I mean,
siblings?
I had four brothers. I actually have a stepbrother too, but we had four brothers. And that was pretty much it. So everything was like right then and there, just smashed, right? And my dad being older, my mom younger, there was different fractions of the family, so everything was like, being thrown to the wolves, right? And for me, it was like being thrown in the mud. So for me, when I first started out, like it was like I knew I had to make money, but it was about becoming somebody, right? Like for me, it mattered that, like even in the car business or business entrepreneur, it gave me an identity to be somebody. I didn't want to be counted out as insignificant. I didn't, because that's how I felt. When that happened and I was at that point in my life, I felt insignificant. I felt like I didn't matter. I felt powerless, right? And I was never an athlete. I wasn't good in sports, but in this I could do it. In this I could win, right? So for me, it wasn't really it was just like, there was no other way. Like it wasn't up for negotiation. It wasn't like if this fails, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, and you probably know this. I think anybody that goes in that's ever going to be a successful entrepreneur, like you can't tell them they're going to fail because they're not, right? Like they're just going to keep going until it happens, right?
Yeah.
Right?
You work through it.
You work through it.
Accidents that happen. I had to close 4 markets in one day, hardest day of my life. Kind of like what's going on with Trump right now. Like you got to pick up the pieces as they come, break glass along the way. It's like, look, you're going to go bankrupt unless you do something. So you do it. And sometimes you got to cut best friends. Sometimes 100%. You got to fire your parents.
100%. Right. And I think that's a really good point because this is where, and obviously, I had a bunch of used car stores. I exited them because we were talking about a plan. I had another plan. I was going to do something different. I got into the, coaching and doing events. So it changed my path. So that plan didn't go. But but that was the big thing is the superpower was, I think the old way of doing business was like you buy something, you hold it forever, you never let it go, and you associate it with failure, right? But today, the best way to doing business is you should always be clipping the bottom 20%, right? Whatever it is, it's just healthy, good business. And I didn't know that when I was younger, but like to your point, what you said, it's like it can't be emotional, right? It's just got to be really matter of fact, and I had to work really hard to not be emotional with that, right? Yeah. Like it came really late in the game for me and it cost me a lot of time, energy, money, and everything. So like, I'm proud of the fact that now I have like you said, it's hard to do. It's not easy to go, people's lives, pride, ego, time, commitment, everything. It's not easy to cut it, so.
I was talking to a guy recently and his name escapes me, but he goes into dealerships that are failing and turns them around overnight. Like he's the guy that goes in, he rehires, he trains the sales guys one guy at a time. Not Andy Elliott, by the way. And he walks in and I said, how do you figure out who to hire? And he goes, you got to have a track record. History is the same thing as the future. So you got to bring in a stub. You got to say that you were a state champion. You got to have something to say
100%.
you know how to get to number one.
100%.
Because past equals future.
100%.
I take guys that are 22. They were pretty good athletes maybe, but they've got a competitive spirit. Like, we're really good at identifying competition. Like, if they're not first, they're angry. There's other people that just like, at least I wasn't last. And those are the people we hire. Like, I'm the most competitive SOB you'll ever meet. Like,
Yeah,
I cannot stand losing. Like,
I read your book and I saw that. I read your book and I saw everything, like how you do it. Like, I was like, man, this guy's really killing it. Like, you're really, everything's spot on. Like, you're living it. You're doing it, you know?
Well, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. You meet these people, you go on their podcast, they drive a Range Rover, they got a big house that they're renting. They're in debt up to their ears, but they live this persona. I'm just who I am. I don't really care. And one of the things that this guy said that fixes dealers, he goes, very, 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 very few real leaders out there, because leaders are focused on the mission. Leaders don't care if they hurt feelings along the way. I'm reading this book. This is the second time I'm reading it. The Courage to Be Disliked, and this whole idea of like, look, the mission is what drives us. It's like winning drives us, and no one's going to get in our way. And very few people have that ability to focus on the mission so much, but people get behind you in a big way when there's a strong mission. I mean, I brought up Andy Elliott. A lot of the people, and Andy, I would tell this to his face, a lot of the people that he finds don't have a good relationship with their father. And he could come in and tell them that, a boy, I'm proud of you. And he looks you in the eyes and he means it. And he wants you to succeed. And I think there's very few leaders, like, it's very important to me. My legacy is not going to be how much money I made or how many garage doors I fixed. It's how many lives I affected in a positive way. When I shook your hand, you were more successful. Maybe you moved on, but you moved on saying that Tommy guy, he lived up to his name and he took care of me and taught me some life skills and taught me what money. People have this misconception of money. Like, it's a bad thing. And it's like, oh, yeah, the money. And it's like, by the way, making money and keeping money is a different skill. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny, you go abundance, scarcity, all these things. So after going through what I went through, at that time, I was probably, I was low 8 figures net worth at that time, going into 30 years old, right? And I lost it all, right? And going through that, and it was the most pain I ever felt in my life, right? Losing the money, like just the whole process of it,
It happens quick too.
Yeah, it happens quick. So then I went the other avenue. Then I went the other way, where all I did for, 15 years was I bought assets and I lived and I still live modestly, right? Like, my life is modest. Like, I don't live, because until I can do what I want to do without pressure, then, and I always, as soon as I get there, I want to do something bigger. And then it's like, so now my thing is, I didn't necessarily know how to invest the money when I was younger and how to get the bigger returns. Now I figured out the compounding, right? Like, I know how to make the investments. I know how to do it. And that has been a lot of fun for me. The name of the game is to be rich. When you talk about money, like, no, money's not going to be it. I'm right there with you on the impact. I'm an impact junkie. I want people to be better as they're a result of their association with me, 100%. But the goal is to be rich and not to look rich. And I think a lot of people go in and they have it, the opposite. The opposite. Well, it's one of them things like, you don't have a Ferrari, so you're not rich, right? And one of the things that I told bankers for years when they would come in and see me, because in the car business and commercial real estate, you're borrowing big amounts of money, right? Like, hey, 20 million, 30 million, 8 million. Like, you're not asking for 600 grand, right? You're asking for a lot of money. And I would always tell the bankers when they came in, they would walk into my office and I'd say, "Did you see my Ferrari out there?" And they'd say, "No." And I'd say, "That's why you're going to give me the money, right? Because I don't have one." There's a guy in California who's a billionaire, right? And he told my brothers, he said, "Listen," he said, "I went in and I was looking to, put together a few $100 million. And the one thing on my financial statement that they came in and asked me about was my boat. I was spending $1 million a year on a boat. And it pissed me off so bad that I got rid of the boat. And I only rent them whenever I go somewhere." And it was the same thing. I remember when I ran into that problem in 07, 08, and I needed money, I had 2 big mortgage payments.
Yeah,
and I went to the bank.
Leveraged.
Yeah, I was leveraged. You know what I mean? So the thing is, I guess to give clarity to the question is, yeah, you have to do the whole, like what people say, you have to make the money, then you have to turn around and invest that money. And then when that money comes back, then you can do what you want to do. That's my thought process on it now.
I'm gonna show you something that I do every day, and it's the thought about money. But I live in ChatGPT, and if I talk to her, she'll talk back. So, and it's simple. Watch this. Hey, if I put $20 million into an investment with a 22% internal rate of return in 10 years, how much money will I have?
Hey, if you invest $20 million with a 22% annual return over 10 years, you'll end up with quite a bit. Using compound interest, the formula is future value equals principal times 1 plus rate times years. Plugging in the numbers, you'd get around $146.1 million.
And I build these scales all the time of thinking about different internal rates of return. Like the mega wealthy, I don't want to put myself in that bucket, but I think like this. I think, how do I get more principal and live off the interest? And by the way, you don't get access to when you spend the money, you don't get access to the interest. I'm building a really, really badass boat, but it's handcrafted wood. And every single year for the last 25 years, these boats have gained 7 to 12%. Boats lose money. Anything that floats, flies, or
Yeah.
this boat goes up in value. I bought a DeLorean, but I got it done like Back to the Future. Goes up in value. Like time is important because my buddy John Rulin, he wrote Giftology. 47 years old, 3 daughters on a hike, died. 3 daughters under the age of 15. I got to live along the way a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I will say, I'm always saving for tomorrow, but I've learned to say, man, maybe I just got to do, you got to do both. And it's hard to do both, but living below your means is super smart because money does not really create happiness, but it gives us options. What is your take on money?
Well, so here's the thing. I'm in my 20s, right? So I'm a kid from the Midwest. So at the time, I was living, my expenses were $1 million a year, right? And I used to joke and say, hey, at $1 million a year, I don't have gas money, right? And you know what I mean, right? And what happened was, I had the cars, I had a driver, I had a maid, I had the house, I had everything. But what I realized was when I had that, it didn't mean as much to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I like nice things. I mean, I buy nice things, right? And there's things that I'm gonna buy that I strategically plan to buy, right? But yeah, I like nice things. But to me, for example, if I went, I'll give you an example. If I go, if I don't have a Ferrari, but I go buy a Ferrari, I pull my Ferrari outside. If I have to go in and worry about somebody keying that car, I don't care what it is. When I pull up in a Ferrari, I'm opening it with my foot on the door. Like I'm the master. Nothing in far as possessions, nothing owns me. Oh, I'm not going to be the guy wiping it off. I'm not going to be the guy that's like, this is meaningless to me.
You've hung out. You used to train quite a bit with Brandon Dawson, it sounds like, do some stuff with him. What did you learn from that, the 10X Grant Cardone? Is there any big takeaways, or was that just like kind of kind of taught you what you'd already know?
Most of it I knew. It was nice seeing it formatted. I think, there was one of the big things was Brandon was, no white spaces on the calendar. He got it from Grant Cardone, really looking at that. And I think that was another piece of the journey. When I went in there and I seen these guys working on Saturday and Sunday, I was pissed because I was like, well, I need to have something that's big enough that I go work on Saturday and Sunday again, because I was the happiest in my life when I worked Saturday and Sunday. Not because I worked a lot of hours, because I'm not advocating that at all, right? That's not a good entrepreneur. But the thing is if I don't want to have a life to where I'm a mailman. If the opportunity comes, nothing against mailmen, but if the opportunity comes up, like I want every day to be Monday and every day to be Friday, right? So when I went in there, I saw that from that aspect, and I think it was just seeing how they were winning, right? I mean, he gives out a ton of value. He knows exactly what he's doing, right? He's well calculated, and I think that was really, just seeing that. There wasn't nothing transformational business wise. Not that it wasn't there, right? I just happened to already been through most of that stuff, but it was there for most entrepreneurs. It is a transformational program that he has there.
You talk a little bit about integrity in business. In my first book, The Home Service Millionaire, I talk about creative justification. Certain people could justify just about anything. I had guys stealing from me, and they, like, in the box with the LiftMaster, the opener. At a certain time of season, there used to be 2 remotes and a keypad that came. So I'd buy a ton of them because I'd get an extra remote keypad. Well, a lot of the guys said, well, he gets them for free. I can give those out and make some money. They knew darn right they were stealing, but they condoned it in their brains. I think a lot of times integrity is a really weird word because it, like love. What is your definition? Some people say I love you to everybody they meet. Some people on the first time they meet you, they go, I love you, man. I mean, Andy says he loves a lot of people. I think because he didn't get a lot of love when he was a kid, he wants to give everybody love. But what's your definition of integrity? What does that mean to you in business?
If I have to alter your belief in what you're getting from me in order to get your money, that's not integrity, right? In any aspect at all whatsoever, right? So we can align the expectation correctly and do the same thing, right? Like I'm still going to push hard as anybody you know. To me, it's just, making sure that, it's the truth, right? You can't lie, right? Like you can't, like you said, it's really easy to justify lying or to justify manipulation or influence, right? Like if you know somebody, right? Like if you're not going to, it's not your job to, save the world, right? You don't have to be deceptive in your practices, right? My life wasn't always as good as it is today. I wasn't always the angel I am today.
How do you tend to notice whether it's a character flaw or just somebody that's disingenuous?
I normally can tell by how they treat other people, right?
The servers.
Right. Well, not the server story, because sometimes you get in further, but yes, but not, you hear that story a lot, but for me, it's more like I look for more importantly, how do they handle conflict, right? Because I always tell everybody, judge me at my worst and you'll see why I am who I am, right?
That's true.
You know what I mean?
I don't ever think with my lady, I don't judge the good times. I have good times with plenty of girls. I judge us by the bad times. How do we get out of it?
Absolutely. That's really the big thing. And there's been some things recently in my life where people specifically came up and I was like, man, I don't really like how they're handling, and it doesn't happen all the time, but specifically, it's funny you should say that. Listen, if you're successful, I don't never look at it. If I see successful people treating people that are not successful, bullying them, there's just no point in it, right? Like it's just unnecessary, right? Because you should just at that point, you just have compassion and you let it go. So for me, that was one of them things that I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go further down this with the deal with this guy. So one of the things, like I looked at some of your stuff, right? Now I always tell, I don't know where it comes from, but I look at it like if people can say certain words, and maybe you can relate to this, if there's certain words that people say and you just know they're the real deal, right? And because liars can't even lie it. Even if you gave them the script and had them say it, they can't say it, right? So the thing is, it's like when I saw you and I saw everything you were saying and doing and everything that I seen about you, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's the real deal. You could see it in how you think, right? And how you're doing everything.
You grew up in sales. This is one of my favorite questions that I don't even ask it as much as I should, but I've got my thoughts on this, but how do you identify someone that's going to be very, very good? And I hate the word sales because it's got a bad connotation to it, but to sell is human. Like, look, if you're going to go find best friends, how to win friends and influence people, like selling is like the preacher sells to get tithing to build the church and build the word of God. Like sales is not bad. To sell is human. Daniel Pink wrote a book about it. But what do you do when you want to recognize somebody that is just, when you meet somebody and you're like, wow, this is an all-star. I need to get this person on my team.
One of the traits are being thick-skinned, right? You know what I mean? You have to be able to handle some adversity in the sales aspect, right? And people have to be driven, right? I think the energy, I have met salespeople that are good, that don't have, a lot of energy, but the energy with the people, they have to have the drive, right? Like when you see people, because a lot of times, it's follow up, it's going above and beyond, it's retention, it's all these other things. And if you want good professional salespeople, and salespeople normally are horrible at process. They're horrible at all that. Good salespeople are. The best salespeople are, but they find a way to the things that matter, right? They let the other things go. And I think even from a leadership aspect, you learn to let them go. But I think the biggest thing is they have to be driven, right? Some people are just driven for it and have thick skin. You have to want to get better, right? Because you have to look for, what can I say better? How can I do better? When I started training sales, it was different back then. All I did was you would sit around and you would listen to the guys that were good, and then you would try to say it in your own words, and if it worked, you'd do it again, yeah. Right? So I think that I was driven, though. A lot of people are driven, so there are people that drive, right? I'm looking for the drive to be successful. Like, people have to be hungry. And also, I do like the aspect of where people are, running from something. If they got treated bad, or if there's something, maybe they don't like, their father didn't get the respect they deserved on the job when they were working for 20 years, 30 years. He came home and complained every day. Like, I want to see somebody that has something in them that no matter what, they can't live with it, that they want to go. And the people that have that ingredient in them, those
chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, those are the people. Those are the people that are unstoppable.
I like that. Even when it comes from bad intentions, like mom didn't love me, whatever it is. Sometimes it's got to shift in the future because you always can't live in that black area of just I'd rather live in the sunshine. But sometimes it takes that to get going.
Yeah, I did.
That inertia.
100%. That's kind of the story of my life. I lived on that. That was one of the things, like when you talk about Andy, right? I was like, Andy, you don't understand. I'm not like these other guys. Like, for me, that vibration is always there. That level of intensity is always there for me. I have to talk myself down.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I'm really big on the energy. I want good energy. I want, and everything like that. I don't want to live in that space. But yes, to your point, there are times and places to where you got to grab it off the shelf and use it. You do.
And you know what? I know how to get to this crazy, and it doesn't come out very often, but the crazy me is like, look, we're going to rip off heads. We're cashing checks and breaking necks. I don't care who gets in the way.
That's
my team. So we took them all to.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this crazy. It's a little bit Andy Elliott-ish. And I'm with my team in Cabo. Giuseppe was there. And I had this speech, and most of it was like, look, it takes a team. All the wives that are here, like, you push these guys, because it's all guys that my technicians. And I'm like, you push them so hard to be a better person. And they push you behind every great man, behind every great woman. And I'm like, you guys mean the world, because I know without you supporting and asking how their day is and pushing them, and if they don't hit their goal, saying it's okay to work Saturday. Like, and I came from more of this humility and just gratitude standpoint. And all my guys go, dude, are you getting soft? I go, maybe. But I just feel very, very fortunate to have you guys in my life. And I got big plans. I'm like, listen, I'm going to show you guys how money works, because you guys are all going to be millionaires. And I got such big plans. All I need you to do is stay focused. And I told everybody, don't buy the Can-Am. Don't buy the new truck. Like, it's okay to finance things for your house, because that's an investment. But I'm like, look, all of you guys want to keep up with the Joneses. And I'm like, man, let that money work for you. So that's my plan, is to teach everybody that works here at this company. And I got a whole plan on how to do it. It's just very, very hard, because they got to put a lot of faith in me, because they got to understand their spending patterns. And some of it, it's like they don't want to share that stuff. I had a guy.
Well, it's in conditioning, right?
Yeah,
they've been taught to be this way, right? You got to unlearn it,
I got to, no one wants to talk about money. It's the first thing I want to talk about with people. I got 3 questions that I ask everybody on the show, that we'll finish up.
Go ahead.
What's a piece of game-changing advice you wish you knew in your 20s?
Piece of game-changing advice, this is going to sound crazy to you. The most important decision that you can ever make in your entire life is who you decide to be with, your significant other. There's nothing more important than that, right? Back to that support thing you were talking about. I don't think that's something that is actionable for everybody. And it sounds simple, but I didn't get that piece right in my 20s, and I have it right today, and my life is totally different as a result of it, right? So that's a game-changing piece of advice.
What are your millionaire habits? The routine that sets apart from the rest. What is something you do, or something you read, or a daily, the atomic habit, if you will?
I have to declutter. The noise in my head is loud, right? So every day, like, my routine is simple. I'm up every day, 4 o'clock in the morning. Even though I got weight on me, I go train every day at 5:30, and I read. So I wake up at 4. I drink 2 cups of coffee. I read from 4 to 5:15. Go train.
What do you read?
Just different, whatever. I basically read based on whatever I am interested in, or whatever's pressing, like whatever I'm working on right then and there, right? Like whatever it is. So I don't, like, if you came and recommended a book to me, I'm not just going to read it because you recommended it. I'll say, okay, what's this about? Okay, when I get to that focus area, I will go ahead and put this first on the priority list because Tommy recommended it, right? You know what I mean? Like, I knew I was coming here, so I had to read your book before I came here, right? You know what I mean? So the thing is, that's just basically, I always am buying, I have, 50 books at home that I haven't read. I just look which one I haven't read yet. And some of them, the good ones, you read them 2, 3, 4 times.
If you had to start over with $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it? $10 million, Nothing else. You got 10 million. You got your relationships. Where do you go from there?
This is going to sound crazy to you, but one of the things that I would get involved in some blue collar business because I know that I speak the language with the people, and I also know that disruption isn't coming, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the thing is I would get involved in something, some sort of business like that. I would not re-enter automotive. Automotive is a very, it's a very tough business if you're not, consolidating it. And the barrier for entry is very high. But I wouldn't redo automotive. I would probably get into something, home services, something like that. That's what I would do.
Joey, listen, I'll tell you what. Elena said, Joey's a little bit more reserved. So you're going to have to pull some stuff out of him. I don't think it was like that at all. This was awesome, man. I could have kept going. This is so cool. I want to keep in touch, and I really enjoyed myself today.
No, man, I'm really happy you had me, man. Let me tell you something. I had probably 75 people reach out to me for podcast. I didn't want to come. As soon as you invited me, I was like, man, I got to go see this guy.
Thank you for being here.
I mean?
So
I'm super grateful you invited me, man. I saw you. I was impressed with you, so that's cool, man.
Thank you for being here, bro.
Absolutely, man.
Appreciate you.